Thank you, Nadine, and thank you, everyone here. Welcome to the Miramar. This is a fantastic Fairmont Miramar right across from the fabulous Santa Monica Pier. I can't think of a better place to have an Oxford-style debate. So I will not be adopting an Oxonian accent, because that would be very rude. We're all Americans here, except for Mr. Shrank. But it is Oxford-style debate. What that means is we have two teams who are going to debate, yes, different topics around this one theme, which is the future of streaming free, or is it paid hybrid? We have two teams. Please give it up, would you, for Team Free, which is John Stevens from V10 Entertainment and Jonathan Shrank from TheSoul Publishing. This is Team Free. Yes, John and Jonathan. We also have Rebecca Avery from Integration Therapy and John Giegengack from Hub Entertainment Research. They are Team Paid Hybrid. Please give it up for Team Paid Hybrid. Now, the rules are as follows. We will start with Team Hybrid, tape 3. Team Free will start, and we'll do 5 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes of discussion and actual debate. And then Team Paid Hybrid will have their chance to address the topic, the first topic. There are two topics. And then we'll have debate. And then after that, we will have a second question that they will debate. And then we'll do very brief open discussion for 2 minutes on different questions that I will throw at them. And in the end, you get to vote, yes, because, of course, I will be keeping score as the debate moderator. But in the end, I want you to pound your feet and also shout yay or nay when I ask for which team is the winner. And from that aggregation of your rather hearty applause or nays and my very astute analysis, I will come up with the winner. Now, as I said, this is a very broad topic, but we are going to start here, as I said, with the first topic is the following. Does CTV, fast channels, and free apps overtake the SVOD world in 5 years? I will repeat. Does connected television, fast channels, and free apps overtake the SVOD world in 5 years? And again, we're starting here with Jonathan and John, Team Free, and you have 5 minutes to debate and discuss. Go.
Thank you, Chris. As requested, even though I'm from Brooklyn, I'm going to put on an Oxford accent for this debate. I'd like to start by asking the audience a quick survey. Can you put your hands up if you're American? Okay, that's the vast majority of the people here. I have to say, to those of you who put your hand up, I do feel a little bit sorry for you. Obviously not because you're American, but because the pay system, the television system rather, in the US has always been one predominantly of pay. In other words, when you want to watch premium content, you have to pay a subscription for it, and there's very limited free channels available for you to watch. That's unlike the vast majority of the rest of the world, where free-to-air television and public service broadcasters provide high-quality entertainment, both linear and streaming, to their audiences for free. In the UK, where the BBC content gets more views than Netflix, most of Europe, much of LATAM, Africa, Asia, India, audiences are able to watch high-quality, premium content across multiple genres, including news, entertainment, and often premium sports without any cost. In other words, the default for the majority of the world is free. Unlike the US, but that's changing too now. Gracenote estimate that there's about 1,850 fast channels in the world. About those, 1,300 are available in the US, proving that the appetite for free streaming content continues to grow. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, we know that YouTube, according to Nielsen, is the most watched content on TVs in the US, growing month on month continuously. Another thing we're seeing here is the saturation of SVOD. So the Nielsen estimate that the average globally is about 2 to 3 SVOD subscriptions. In the US, it's about 4. And the fatigue is obvious. In their report, they estimate that around 50% of people feel that they're paying too much for SVOD. And a Reuters report showed that about 50% of people are also considering sharing passwords or cancelling their SVOD subscriptions altogether, preferring to move to a free model. Another point I'd like to touch on is advertising, which is a key fundamental factor when it comes to how content is monetized. And it's very clear that the shift in advertising is moving away from traditional, linear, and broadcast to digital. TV Rev estimates that by the end of this year, about 35% of advertising spend will be on fast channels. And MNTN research estimates that by 2030, over 40% of global TV advertising will be on connected TVs. Together, we can see that today, tomorrow, and certainly over the next 5 years, free streaming is going to certainly overtake paid and hybrid. At this point, I'd like to hand over to John to continue the conversation.
Yes, John, you've got 1 minute, John.
Thank you. So Jonathan started off and took more of a macro global. I'm going to keep it as domestic and U.S. as I can. I always like to look at hours of consumption as a starting point, and FAST year over year is up 30%. YouTube year over year is up 17%. Netflix, the mother of all, SVOD services, is up 3%. And so if you just think about that, the growth trajectory of free versus paid or even paid hybrid, it's undeniable. If you want to look at, and you started to touch on it, but I think it's important to note that, and we've all been hearing this statistic, but 14% of all TV consumption, of all TV viewing, is on YouTube. And again, Netflix is the biggest of the SVODs. It's 8.8%. A study was done just this year where 66% of all persons between the ages of 18 and 34 prefer free over paid or paid hybrid. 66%. And you always look at where's the young audience, what's the entry point, where are they headed, and that's where they're headed. The final piece of data that I thought was really powerful is the following. All of paid today, so all of your SVOD, all of your paid content is a $100 billion business. And it's projected to grow quite a bit to $127 billion by 2029. Free, and this is, by the way, that what I was referencing was paid and paid hybrid is a $100 billion business today. Free is only a $60 billion business, and by 2029, it is projected to grow to be a $150 billion business. So I can say that there's no doubt that in 5 years, and probably sooner, free will overtake paid and paid hybrid.
Excellent job. Please give it up for Team Free. Excellent job. Their first point. And now for 5 minutes, we will have the rebuttal and also open discussion. So I will open it up for, of course, Team Paid Hybrid to comment, and you can both go back and forth at each other. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks. Well, and these guys made some great points. But I think if we think about, what's going to be the future of television, if it's going to be, regardless of what pay model we think it might be, I think the really important thing to remember is that if you boil down everything that the TV industry, the fix we've gotten ourselves into the past few years, it all comes down to one thing, which is now consumers have the choice. They are the end user, they're the customer. For most of the time that TV has been around, the viewers were the thing that were bought and sold between the TV networks and advertisers. And so really, I think everything that's happening in TV now goes down to the basis of now consumers, the end user, have the choice to do whatever they want. And if they've learned nothing else from the age of streaming, it's that they no longer have to compromise. They don't have to watch something they don't want to see. They don't have to use a provider they don't want to use, and they don't have to pay or not pay in some way other than exactly the way that they would like to. And I think that now I'll go through some other data points about why I think that paid or especially hybrid is going to continue to be the most important because it gives people choice. But I think all of it really kind of comes down to that. And one is that there's really a growing demand for the ability to choose between ads and ad-free platforms. So according to Antenna, even with the growth in FAST, there are still more ad-free subscribers than there are ad-supported ones. If you look at the different types, the platforms that offer both. And there are also very, very few people, relatively few people, that switch from ad-free to the ad-supported tiers. There's more people that go in the other direction, also from Antenna data. And what this really tells us is that there are just some people that just don't want to watch ads. When we field our research on ad-supported platforms, there's roughly about 30% of people who say that if there's an ad-free option, even if it costs $4 to $5 more, I'm always going to choose that one. And in practice, not all those people actually do. There are circumstances that come up where they'll still choose the ad-supported one. But there are a lot of people who just don't want to watch ads, and they will continually choose the option that lets them do that. We can also see this because of the way that when we look at the satisfaction, the viewer satisfaction with people that are using the ad-free and ad-supported tier of the same platform, they're the same. So if you look at people that use HBO Max ad-free or people that use HBO Max ad-supported, they're within a few percentage points of each other in terms of the people who say that it's an excellent value or the people that say I'm going to keep this for another year. And the reason is because no one is being forced to compromise. If you only have an ad-supported version, there's going to be a bunch of people who don't like ads, and they're either going to have to watch those ads anyway, or they're going to have to go somewhere else. If you only have ad-free, people that would rather watch ads and save a little bit of money, they don't have that option either. So you're being forced to compromise. And in this day and age, for TV consumers, compromise is really kind of a non-starter. I thought that the fact that YouTube is the biggest ad-supported platform on TV would come up, and that's 100% too. They have, I think, 13% in the August gauge. But that's so 13% of the viewing that happens on TV screens through Nielsen goes through YouTube. That means that 87% of the viewing that happens on TV screens goes through some other platform. If you add up YouTube, Tubi, and Pluto, I think altogether they come out to about like 18% or something like that. So if you add up the ad-supported or ad-free paid platforms, they still have a much larger share. So there's no question at all that fast viewing is growing, but I think it's growing in large part because it is new and because it doesn't cost anything, and it's always going to take share from the providers that were there before it. But I don't see a future where people are going to be 100% content with free TV with ads in it. They're going to want to have some other options. You raised a great point. We talked on the call beforehand about how you almost changed my mind when you brought up the government broadcasters in Europe. And it's true. You get a whole ton of awesome stuff for free in Europe that you don't get here. But it's worth noting that a lot of that BBC content gets put onto Netflix or it gets put onto BritBox and it comes over here and people happily pay a premium to watch it. So even there, I think there's still a market for being able to have that premium content that people will pay for.
Rebecca, go ahead.
Just for a moment, actually, it's kind of bridging off of what you just said. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the growth numbers because percentage-wise, you are correct. Ad-supported is growing a whole lot faster. It's also coming from a much smaller base. So if you say that these small and medium networks are growing 20, 30% in their viewership, and some of them are, but Netflix only grew 3%, well, Netflix is so monolithic. Evan Shapiro isn't even including them in all of his reports anymore because they throw off the chart. So like number by number, Netflix is still growing, which I think kind of makes the counterpoint. And then if you also look at the numbers that have been released for CPMs on Netflix compared to pure AVOD, Netflix is getting sometimes $50 up to $60 CPM, where small to medium networks are sitting at 12, 14, almost always under $20 CPM.
Great comments, and that's perfectly fitting the time that we have for the first one. And please give them a round of applause, both sides. Now, Team Paid Hybrid, Rebecca and John, will address again the first topic. They have 5 minutes, and once again, if you've forgotten, the topic is, again, does CTV, fast channels, and free apps overtake the SVOD world in 5 years? You have 5 minutes. Go.
Well, so I think the CTV thing is a little bit of a. Do you mean like CTV, like OEM channels? The CTV is going to take over everything. We find that in our research, our annual research on where people start their viewing, the most recent wave, we've been doing it for 10 years now. The most recent wave just came out, and for any streaming platform at all, an app inside of a smart TV operating system, not an external media player, is now the #1 starting point, regardless of what kind of TV you're going to watch. So for sure that the fact that so many people are starting on the smart TV and that operating system is the first thing they see, which is recommending content to you or recommending even services to you, that has vastly more influence. Every time somebody turns the TV on, they have another opportunity to introduce their OEM fast channels. So I think that's going to be a big benefit. But I do think that smart TVs are going to be something that raises all boats, not just fasts. In addition to the stuff I said before, I think that another thing that falls in line with the future being more hybrid is, you mentioned like the growth in the number of fast channels. Like I actually think that's a little bit of a handicap more than it is an advantage. When we talk to people that are using, 4 or 5 or 6 streaming platforms, there's like nobody is saying, I just need some more platforms to manage. I need some more channels to find my way through. They're saying one of the reasons we're seeing so much interest in bundling, one of the reasons we're seeing so much use of smart TVs is the way that they consolidate content in one place. And almost the worst pitch you could make somebody today, like a regular, especially if it's somebody like under 25, there's going to be some good stuff to watch in here. You just have to pour through these 1,600 channels until you find the show that you want. It's very fractured. It's very distributed. And there's no sort of easy routine to find your way back to the same piece of content that you were, that you wanted to use. There's not sort of a standard sort of path that people can follow and get used to. I think that's going to improve. But I think in the meantime, the fact that there's so many channels and everything is so diffused is actually one of the things that makes it more difficult for people to use it, not easier. The other challenge I think for fast platforms is that, so fast platforms, some of them like Tubi or the Roku channel have put some money into originals, but mostly they are built around catalog content, and there's nothing wrong with that. Netflix, before they made Lilyhammer, their entire library was the stuff that TV networks thought nobody would care about watching. They sold Netflix, the equivalent of the $5, the big blue bucket at Walmart with the $5 DVDs in it, and Netflix did a great job of arranging all of that, making it really graphical, making an algorithm where you could find things that would be relevant that you'd enjoy. But in practice, about 40% of people and more than half of people that are under the age of 25 choose new platforms because of some particular piece of content, usually an original and almost always an exclusive that they want to watch. So without that, people will still come to fast platforms for nostalgia. They'll still come to fast platforms for things like, new to me shows like Gunsmoke from the 50s was like the top streaming on 2 of the big aggregators. That's great, but nobody went on there looking for season 5 of Gunsmoke from 1964 and I've really got to seek that out and find it. They go looking for the new original shows, and so I think that the economics of fast platforms make it harder to come up with those big flashy originals. But I think in real life, to be competitive, you need a mix of the nostalgia viewing and those kind of destination shows that people are seeking out.
Rebecca, anything to add to that?
No, I have nothing to add. I think John covered it really well.
Excellent. You will yield back about 30 seconds here. Now it's time to have discussion from Team Free on what Team Paid Hybrid has just discussed.
Yeah, that would make a great argument for what John said if it wasn't so US focused. We can talk about fast platforms, what's on connected TVs, but as we said, although it's a small, it's 87% is correct, but what's seeing is YouTube is becoming more and more ubiquitous, and that is the most watched platform if you take it on its own as connected TVs. The library content question is an interesting one, because if I was to go onto YouTube now and look at the most popular show for the first half of this year in the US, it's actually Saturday Night Live, which isn't library, it's not a film from the 50s, it's a current show. And if I look at the top 10 channels in the US as well. 3 of them major news organizations, ABC News, NBC News, and CNN, and they also have ESPN there as well. So what people are doing is, in a fractured environment, they're seeking out the content where they can find it for free, and that happens to be on YouTube, where there's hundreds of millions of free channels available for people to access their content. Globally as well, as I mentioned earlier, people who are conditioned and are able to watch their content for free don't have to pay subscriptions to see their premium content, because they can just switch on the BBC or Rai in Italy or any other of the hundreds of public service broadcasters around the world and access this premium content for free. That includes, as I mentioned earlier, major sports rights, films, television shows, premieres of television shows, the latest content. So as I say, the US is very much stands alone in terms of the way it's set up in the pay TV ecosystem. And I think the question here, we're talking globally. So when we're looking at the whole global TV environment, the numbers speak for themselves. America's a huge audience, but if you take all the rest of the world, including India and China, where there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of people being able to access the content for free, it's clearly obvious that the numbers stack up against each other and free is the majority, not just in 5 years, but now.
John Stevens, anything to add to that?
No, you covered it well.
Very, very, very excellent. Please give it up for Team Free here for a second. Before they address topic number 2. Topic number 2 is, when spinning up a new channel, should it be free or paid, and why? I will repeat. Topic number 2, when spinning up a new channel, should it be free or paid, and why?
This is whether you're a creator, whether you're a small production
Exactly.
company, a studio, you could be any of the above.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's the definition. And Team Free, you have 5 minutes. Go.
So for the purposes of this question, I'm going to assume that this new channel doesn't have the rights for the NFL games or MLB or something pretty significant. I'm assuming it's a new channel with some great content. And there's a few things that most channels want from their content. They want reach, they want watch time, they want viewership, they want monetization, and they want a community, an audience. At TheSoul, we've got great experience at building channels, and what we've done is we've gone digital first and allowed them to move around to other media ecosystems, including streaming. An example of this is a channel we have called 5 Minute Crafts. It's a fun arts and crafts DIY show. Has about 81 million subscribers on YouTube, about 400 million across all social media. We had built up a huge audience, and we transitioned it really successfully to about 60 different streaming platforms. Why did we do that? Because it allowed us to grow, build an audience, a community who loved it, and allowed us to take it around the world. The other team might say, but that channel's 9 years old. It takes years and years to build an audience and monetize. I can give you another example. A year and a half ago, we launched a channel called Learn Tunes, which is a kids' preschool show with fun games and activities and songs. In a year and a half on YouTube, it's gained 17 billion views and 12 million subscribers on its own, organically. Great content, free, and now it's being distributed to streaming platforms. I make this point to illustrate that YouTube and free streaming platforms are a brilliant environment to start building your content ecosystem and get instant feedback. On YouTube, and on a monthly basis or quarterly basis on fast channels, you're able to get data, which is absolutely fundamental, and not only helps you in terms of shaping what your content proposition to do, but also having your audience give you feedback to make it the best possible viewing experience for yourself and your audience. You don't have to wait months and months to monetize. In theory, you could be monetizing in a month or two. You have data, you have analytics, you can build a community. And what's great about that is then you can take that channel and take it into other environments, be it fast or even paid channels as well. But having the ability to build that proven audience is exactly what platforms around the world are looking for. And there's no better platform to reach a huge audience at scale than YouTube. Also worth mentioning in terms of the monetization and advertising, as I mentioned earlier, the statistics are clearly showing the move to digital and the way that content's being monetized. In terms of social media and also for fast channels, the ability to monetize at scale is prevalent, and it gives you a much quicker route to market to building an audience, watch time, reach, and monetization.
John, anything to add to that?
Yeah, similar scenario, but a different use case. We have a show. So we own America's Funniest Home Videos. We bought the company a few years ago that makes that show. We have this vast library of 2.8 million clips. And a couple of years ago, we decided to go into the marketplace with a new program, and we were debating whether we try to go license it or start a channel. And we ultimately chose to start a channel, and it started off on YouTube and Facebook and like platforms. It's called Always Funny. And within a very short period of time, it was scaled up and it's a full 24-hour-a-day channel that has multiple programs that we make, all from our internal library of content. We started there. We started in Fast and Facebook were the two big monetization lanes. YouTube and Facebook for the big monetization lanes. Then we scaled it up and repurposed it again into Fast. And that brand throws off millions of dollars annually in a very short amount of time. And we have done one. We were approached to do one pay deal, and it was 10%. I looked it up this morning. It was 10%. The license fee for that was 10% of what we made by controlling our own destiny, being able to adapt to the marketplace, being able to get viewer feedback instantaneously. And so for me, there's no question that whether you want to be a micro-influencer, you think you're going to be the next Mr. Beast, or you've got a production idea, some sort of content you're making, waiting around on the networks and streamers to license or buy your content is a waste of time when I would say in most of the cases, it would make sense to go and start it in the new way.
Excellent. Great comments. And now we have got 5 minutes of rebuttal and discussion from Team Paid Hybrid. Go.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of start by saying that it can make a lot of sense to start out in a place like YouTube and then eventually monetize it in different ways. But I believe that that's more of an argument for a hybrid model. Am I wrong?
I was going to say that. Well, I actually think that one, it's pretty hard to make and we are going to make this argument in a second, but I'm glad she has to do it, not me. But I think for starting one channel, it is tough to argue against having it start off being a free one, but to make it grow, there's a reason that, that Mr. Beast made his free content as big as he made it, and now he's got a show on Amazon that they're to reach all the
where's
different...
the revenue concentration though? It's not his Amazon show. Where is the bulk of the viewership and the revenue being derived?
Sure, yeah, but if you also look at for any of these people, the holy grail is to be the next Mr. Beast and push your stuff out, create a brand, create a studio, and put it everywhere that people will find it. And so I think that a hybrid model lets you reach everyone. No one has to compromise. If we weren't doing this debate, I would call free, part of the hybrid idea. Like a lot of the VMVPDs have free content now that they use to bring people in. Pluto is a free flywheel that hopefully engages people and moves them up the line to Paramount Plus. And so I feel like I'm making an argument. I don't agree 100% in kind of arguing against free, but I do think I am 100% sure that having multiple ways for people to get your content, some free, some paid, some cheaper and ad supported, is going to be the road to greatest success in the future. And we see that kind of playing out. Playing out already. YouTube has YouTube Premium. They didn't keep it all 100% free. They thought there was something worth having a tier that people pay for.
But if I'm a creator, I'd want as many people as possible to watch my content. So yeah, I put it on YouTube, but then I'll go to a platform, and these platforms are actively seeking out creators like a Samsung TV Plus or a Tubi, where my content can reach a huge audience as possible. My conversation with platforms is always already simple. It's your audience is already watching our content, just not on your platform. So I wouldn't want to gatekeep that. I wouldn't want people to pay for that. I want people to watch my content like they do on YouTube. Now what I would do, perhaps for these platforms, is change it. Perhaps I can make it a longer episode. I can put an opening and closing title sequence on it. I can make the metadata and descriptions different. But I wouldn't put it behind a paywall because I'd want as many people to see the content as possible, because the value there is not only the monetization, but it's the reach, which lends itself to more programming, merchandising, other commercial opportunities. So I would argue that if I'm a creator, I'd want it to be as ubiquitous as possible to reach the maximum possible audience.
If I was an individual creator, I agree with you. If I was trying to launch a streaming service like a platform, I think that becomes. But for individual creators, I will. I'm arguing against our part of the debate here, but I agree with you on that one.
And I think that's going to end that part of it. We're going to now go to team paid hybrid to address the second topic. When spinning up a new channel, should it be free or paid, and why? You have 5 minutes.
Her argument for this is much better than mine, by the way.
I've been sitting here quiet, waiting to do this heavy lift. So I actually maximize revenue for streaming networks. I've worked for about a half a dozen startups, including Pluto TV, and for a lot of enterprise platforms. So being an operations person and somebody who is bringing bespoke solutions to every company who in their own way is trying to do something original, I sort of felt a bit backed into having to make a lot of assumptions, sort of like what you were doing, Jonathan. We're like, hang on a second, maybe they don't have the Super Bowl. So it just sort of makes me think, well, what kind of content do you have? Who is your audience? What is your budget? Are you VC funded? Are you bootstrapped? Are you starting on YouTube? Are you creator? And I sort of went to this sort of, vanilla kind of place and said, what all of these people have in common is they need to build a sustainable, profitable business. And something that we haven't actually said outright on this stage is that most of the platforms that we are talking about, with 2 exceptions that I can count since we started, are still sitting at that precipice of actual profitability. They're still figuring it out. And part of that is the transition of advertisers that are coming over from broadcast. And then they're all getting, completely swept off their feet by Netflix before Fremantle really has a chance to get to them in the first place, much less maximize the CPM. So people are in a really interesting spot. Another piece that we haven't really discussed is ad tech. It's very expensive, not just the technology itself, but finding the people to run it, hiring ad sales, doing that whole piece, very difficult for a young company. Pluto and Tubi both claim that they were the first ones to actually do that. I'm biased, I think it was Pluto. But it is still kind of a rare thing today, even with the cost coming down. So. And as I alluded to before, I do agree that at first, maybe coming out with free can work, but I think of that as a marketing spend. I think it's a Barker channel. I don't think that that is a sustainable business model to do things like go out and license more content. I don't think that it is in the long-term interest to do. I also believe that the reason that everybody jumped over and started doing AVOD isn't because they believe that AVOD is the future. I think it is because they believe that if they want to have a future, they need sustainable profits and they need as many levers as they can get to get there. We have short life cycles on technology. We have short life cycles on what is considered current content. So we have audiences that change their tastes all the time, and you need as many levers as you can be pulling as you're dealing with churn in both SVOD and AVOD to figure out what is going to be our profitability story next quarter or next year, because the money isn't flowing from the VCs like it was 5 years ago. So that is sort of my argument, I think, is you want to start out doing value first, just like anybody would. And I think that is actually true for creators, because creators spend an enormous amount of time and energy making their content, and they still need to eat and they still need to pay rent. And I absolutely adore what Tubi is doing, where you can just upload your content and start making a bit of money. But the Tubi CPMs, it's just not the same as if you can distribute it to Netflix, which is hybrid.
John Giegengack, anything to add to that?
Just you said something that reminded me too. It's that this idea that there's all these people that are watching free streaming and they're watching it because they don't want to pay for stuff. One really interesting thing we've been doing our analysis lately is looking at people that watch free streaming platforms and comparing them to people that that don't watch them. And the people that watch the free streaming platforms, far from being less engaged in TV, they're actually just as engaged or more. So they spend just as much money on TV every month as the people that don't watch FAST. They have more streaming platforms than the people that don't watch them. They're younger and they're more, in many ways, they're more prolific TV viewers. So it seems that these are people that are not watching free because they don't want to pay. It's because they're paying for a bunch of stuff already. And this is a way for them to exercise their curiosity without having to open one more account, without having to pay one more monthly bill. And the prospects for those people to get engaged in a show that they would not have discovered if it wasn't free, to be fair, that's a really good argument. But get them engaged enough that they will then care about that piece of content enough to pay for it. This idea that Pluto is like a flywheel that drives people to CBS or Paramount Plus, I think, is a really sound theory, at least in the data that we've gathered.
Excellent, and we are on time. Please give it up for Team Paid Hybrid. Thank you for that. We now have 5 minutes of rebuttal and discussion from Team Free. Go.
Yeah, just to pick up on a couple of things. Rebecca, you mentioned that free is essentially a Barker channel. If that was the case, my company wouldn't be in business. We built our business on YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Insta, TikTok, all free platforms. And that is where the core of the business started and still remains. We've been extremely successful in making high quality, broadcast quality content, not UGC, not just a content that was referred to a bit earlier in terms of YouTube's fundamentally changed in the same way that creator content has as well. So my argument would be that in terms of sort of free content, it doesn't have to be any less quality than premium broadcast content, and it can be a hugely profitable business. In terms of the ad tech, if I was starting off a channel now, I wouldn't necessarily think I'd have to put my own ad tech solution in place, right? There's plenty of companies and platforms and technical integrators who can provide that for me as well. So that's not something I'd necessarily have to develop in-house. I could work with partners to do that, and it wouldn't, it would obviously be a percentage commission to it, but it wouldn't be an upfront investment, so I wouldn't need the technical expertise to facilitate that.
Sure, may I respond?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so there are about 2 exceptions that I have counted since we got on stage as far as profitability. One of them is YouTube. The other examples are also profitable companies, but they're social media, which I believe is outside of the scope of this particular debate. I totally agree that free content can be very high quality, although there is a fair amount of evidence out there that shows that audiences don't necessarily value free content the same way that they value content that they've paid for. I forget what the second remark was.
About ad tech.
Oh, about ad tech. Yes, that is absolutely true. There are companies. Those companies also charge a premium for their services. And those are the particular companies where I got the number of $12 to $16 CPM is about what you can expect when you're running a handful of channels. I literally had a meeting about 2 weeks ago with somebody who runs about 50 channels through one of those companies. His CPM is averaging around $14. So it's still pretty lean.
Yeah, but I just go the fundamental of if you're going to start something, if you're going to go in as a creator or a studio or a small production company, it's just to me there's no question that you wouldn't start free. It's just I understand and whether you have the capital to go build your own ad tech stack or you're going to use a third party. Overall, the majority would say that they would they would go the free route over the paid route. I don't see how that isn't true.
And I think that we should continue talking about ad tiers here because we've talked a little bit, but what do we think has happened in the last few years, and where is it going in the next 5 years in terms of both the free side, FAST, and also SVOD? And John, I know you've got some research on that.
I think that all these companies have to reach whatever parts of the market they haven't reached already, and there's only so many levers you can pull with new content, especially as content gets more and more expensive. But we saw Netflix have a big, and every platform when they added a new ad-supported tier, that enabled them to reach more people. Netflix had its last big bump in subscribers before they started reporting it when they allowed you to extend your subscription to other, like a different people in your household. So there's got to be some way to reach that ever smaller number of folks that you haven't reached yet. And I think offering a less, in our research and the data I've reviewed from Antenna, lowering the price and adding ads does open you up to a new bunch of people that you have not reached before. I think the next logical step after that, or the first step, as these guys are saying, when you launch a new channel, would be to add free to that, because there's going to be some other number of people that we've seen that will try something if it's completely free and watch ads, and that way you can extend your reach a little bit further. But I don't see a way that you can grow your user base or subscriber base without kind of tinkering with the pay model in some way.
And that leads to a lot of creativity here. I'm actually going to jump. First of all, we're still amazingly on time. So please give it up for both sides right now. Those were the two debate topics. Now we're going to go into shorter questions. And basically, I will just time these at about 4 minutes each for open discussion. That was a good segue, John Giegengack, into a series of questions that I'm going to ask around bundling. There's a lot of third-party bundling of SVOD content, including by mobile operators, and not just here in the US. What do we think about that? Is that actually limiting the horizon and the growth for SVOD? And is that enabling a greater acceptance of free? What do we think about that?
The bundling is going to be the really transformative thing, I think, that makes a lot of the economics for streaming work better. When you ask people why, what is the limit to what limits them to having more streaming services, and not just TV, but all kinds of other subscriptions too. There are as many people who say that I just can't mentally process any more of these services, even if I could afford to have them all. That's as big of an impediment as the people that say, I just don't want to spend any more money. So this idea that, and I think that's kind of what we were talking about too with the fast channels, the fact that there are so many of them is, you get that paradox of choice where if you give somebody, the 3 jars of jam to choose a sample from and they'll pick one, if you give them 18 to choose from, they're just going to be like, no thank you, and they'll just leave. So I think that bundling and especially aggregation, like Amazon channels or through Roku or through YouTube, where you can sign up for subscriptions and control them all in one spot, sometimes it makes your subscriptions cheaper, but oftentimes it costs the same amount, but you can just use them all from one place, and that is like the #1 problem that viewers have today on our surveys, is that TV is just too complicated for me to get the best use out of it.
So the logicalization, does that then apply, though, to Team Free? I would think that you would see something similar, right? Are we going to see the bundling on the free side as well? What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's cyclical, like a lot of things in life are, right? So the reason there was so much cord cutting is that consumers didn't want to pay for bundles, right? They were given a whole bouquet of content that they had to take, and they didn't want to commit to paying for a lot of channels that they never watched. So example, if I wanted to watch just ESPN, I'd have to pay, right? I'd have to take all the other channels along with that. That's what I'm paying for. In terms of fast, yes, I think it will follow that. I think we will see bundling. By
consolidation,
yeah. Yeah, that's natural, and we're starting to see that now.
And you hit one of the key things that we've alluded to but not spoken too much about, which is, and it really gets into this whole paradigm of what is free in terms of streaming. American television companies, mostly, until recently, have wanted you to watch over the air, or certainly watch through a cable subscription, your CTV, however that's bundled. But the fact is that streaming is what we do. We do it on every bloody device that we have that's IP connected. So I think that sports is what drove a lot of people to cut the cord. Regional sports networks where you were paying insane amounts for ESPN or to watch the Lakers or whatever else. And that's even driven people to say, I'm not paying $30 a month, for example, for New England Sports Network, if you're a Red Sox fan like me. That's a difficult choice to make, but I think that both sides are definitely saying that the bundle may lead to something in the next 5 years. And is it economic? Is it choice? Is it both? And is it also, and here's the other thing that I think we all speak to, which is the quality of the content. Is that a herring? Jonathan, what do you think?
In terms of free content?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue, as I've said, that it can be just as high quality as what you'd see on a broadcast traditional platform.
It can be, for sure. Just a lot of it isn't. You know, if you look at how many different creators there are on TV, and even like Mr. Beast, the giant ones account for a very small proportion, and then there's this super long tail but I do think, you know, on YouTube there are more, you know, companies like yours where the quality is getting bigger. You know, like your iPhone now has like the production capabilities of like a local TV station in 2002. So I think the quality is going to continue to improve, but it is a little bit more uneven. It's like going on Napster instead of going on Spotify.
Well, I think it's also creating the behaviors and do they concretize? I mean, once upon a time, you know, we had a wonderful 6-second thing on Twitter when it was still called Twitter, and that went away, Vine. And I saw some of the most brilliantly produced content ever that could be done in 6 seconds. So I think that the Mr. Beasts of the world no longer play just to a young demographic as well, because the content is bringing in sponsors, and we're not necessarily talking specifically about sponsors, but from an ad point of view. And Rebecca, you know, I know this is an area, since you did yeoman's work with Pluto TV. Do we think that that's going to lead into a furtherance of new channels or even new networks as well? Because we haven't talked, for example, about the MCN here, but you know, that's still around. Is that something that still pulls audience?
That is something I think that still pulls audience. And as far as the bundling, I do want to say I think that there is kind of an interesting limitation that's being created by the digital bundling. So it's really flashback from cable TV when there were the cable bundles and there were the packages, and if you subscribe to this, you have to get these 8 others. But if you looked at the supply chain and how that became, it is because broadcast had limited bandwidth. And so everybody was running out trying to do their carriage deals and take up the last pieces of bandwidth. I remember because at the time I was working at the 5th smallest cable channel in the country, and we lost some carriage and it hurt. But that doesn't exist in streaming, but now we're seeing the bundles. And we're seeing the bundles because networks and streamers are finding themselves having to find as many levers as they can possibly pull to reach profitability. And this is one of the levers that they're working with now. But what's also, I'm just going to say what has become actually very limiting is the fact that companies like Hulu and Disney are going out as bundles, and the limitations are no longer about bandwidth, it's about market share. And so what happens is all of these guys are coming in, they're gobbling up some huge percentage of the market, and it gets very, very difficult to go get carriage on Samsung TV because they're full. And I actually have even been doing some research into launching in Africa, which, you know, the vast majority of Africa is supposed to have internet that can support streaming content in the next 5 years. Well, the land grab is already underway. If you don't have your channel built now, you're not going to get into a bundle. But I think what's going to happen is there is going to be a bit of a fatigue that's going to open it up, which is very different than the technical.
Excellent point. And by the way, Africa has been a leader, and certainly in mobile television for many, many years. So that's an interesting point to note. But I want to go to Team Free on this next question to start this. Is free versus paid hybrid, is that model for the largest streamers moot? So like YouTube, Roku announced a deal, they created Howdy. Of course, they've had Roku Originals. YouTube has YouTube TV, Disney Plus, Netflix, Prime. I mean, they all have varying models. Is it moot for them? And what does free mean to them, Jonathan?
Yeah, just to mention quickly just about, you know, in terms of sort of the quality of creator content, let's call it free content generally. In free content and also paid content, there's a lot of really rubbish television. So, but also there's a lot of really good quality television as well. And if you watch go back to creators across multiple genres, I know, let's say cooking, for example, or a baking show. If you watch some of those shows, they're just as professionally produced as you'd see pretty much on a public service broadcaster. And that's why these shows are getting picked up globally across multiple platforms. So there's been a bit of a sort of slight on AVOD, a bit of a slight on free content, that it's not as good as, it's user-generated. But I would absolutely question that, and I would say take a look at some of the produced content that you'll see from creators. In terms of your question about sort of the major platforms, again, it's quite a US-centric question. So what we're seeing is the ability for the streamers, the bigger streamers, to have, we're talking about different tiers, right? But I mean, I take YouTube as an example. You've got the sort of the floor for YouTube, right? You've got the vast majority of people watching the free content, and then you've got the prime time on top of that, right? So it's an additional service you can add on there. But what you're seeing on YouTube prime time is not the same as you'll be seeing on YouTube, right?
Right.
In fact, they actively, I think, discourage, if the channels are on YouTube, I don't think they're actually even taking those content onto prime time. So you're talking about a different content proposition altogether there.
And I want to segue into another question, which is related to what we've been talking about with creators. So we mentioned Jimmy, Mr. Beast, but there are so many other creators, and of course MicroCo was recently launched, and these micro channels, this idea of vertical coming back, not just because of TikTok, but the audience is ready for that. So Jonathan and everyone else, I mean, don't we feel that this is the new universe, and that this will somehow both attract advertisers as well as audience? And to Rebecca's point, that VCs may not be funding some of the things they were funding 10 years ago in terms of the end of peak TV, but talk about where the influencer is in all of this over the next 5 years.
You're saying with the micro drama, right? The premium vertical. We just made a deal with a company that produces in that space. They just made the first reality content and all, or first reality show called Love Bombing in who they make it for Real Short. Is the question, is that where, I didn't understand what the question was. Like that, as I understand the micro drama space, there's a pay as you go. That's how a lot of people consume it. But then there's also a reward for sitting through, watching commercial, watching ad break. That's another method, and that is the method that's growing faster than people that are going to pay $1 a minute or 50 cents a minute or whatever the token costs are. So I think it's the same with it's been, microdramas have been around for over 2 years, 3 years now. It's just coming here to the U.S. And Jana Winograd, the CEO, is a good friend for Microco. I think that their model, I don't know exactly what their model will be here in the U.S., but I can tell you that the free aspect of even microdrama premium content is already pacing up against the pay-as-you-go version.
And I think that's a key point that we need to look at in terms of what sort of spikes out, because I think that team paid hybrid would have something to say about where that goes, because I think that there are so many talent agencies, and Jonathan Shrank, you've got underscore talent. Yeah. I think that's a part of the discussion here in terms of the creation and production distribution side of this. Is that going to hold? Are we going to find our next big stars coming out of, as we have, this creator universe?
Yeah, I think for sure that we'll find lots of stars coming out of there. I mean, but I think what's going to happen is they're not going to be limited to just one pay model. They're going to extend themselves out. So the microdramas are a great example. If you see them on TikTok, they screen those there. You can watch like an episode for free, but then they take you off platform, at least some of the companies, and you sign up for a separate subscription with some really innovative methods of paying for it. But again, I think it just goes back to the fact that the best recipe for success is you should leave your options open to offer content to people in all the different ways that there are, and not just limit yourself to like one or two of them as the best way.
Yeah, Rebecca?
Yeah, exactly. It sort of takes me back to, because this is describing a content type. So who's using that content type and for what, and what is their goal with it? I think that flexibility is really going to be the key here.
Yeah, I agree with John about keeping options open. That's actually a really good rule for life generally. But in terms of the creators, it's interesting to see that they haven't always necessarily transitioned to SVOD platforms successfully, or had the reach and success that they've had on the free platforms. So that may come in time, and it may be, it could be format, it could be different audiences, but that's something I'm really interested to see how that goes over the next few years. The creators who can really make as big a success and monetize as well as they've done on the free platforms.
He's right. If you look at like Joe Rogan, who was on YouTube, then he went to Spotify with that massive deal, and then he got back out of it again because it wasn't, for a variety of reasons. But it's not. I think you're right that it's not always being on a paid platform is not like better than being on a free one, but it gives you more options and more segments of the audience to reach that you might otherwise be missing if you just limited yourself arbitrarily to one model or two models.
Yeah.
I think it's a real pity that so many large platforms are starting to take away their average revenue per user metric. And I understand that it's a bit muddy, particularly in hybrid models, and that's part of why they're not reporting on that so much anymore, because I think it would actually be very interesting. I was thinking about what you were saying, where audience isn't necessarily converting over to paid, but what does the revenue look like for the audience that does convert? Is the average revenue high enough to make up for that difference? And if not, will that become more sustainable as we grow?
Well, I think it's interesting to see. I mean, within 5 years, we're already seeing, as we mentioned, a shift in the last few years from some of the larger players. I mean, you talked about cable carriage earlier, and of course, Samsung TV Plus did a deal with Darman a couple months ago. So here you've got this influencer, maybe not the biggest in the world, but I think it's more important that he's not necessarily the biggest. It's just that he spells out a strategy for them to hit somebody who's got a really strong niche, something that can grow. And I think that that may be where it goes anyway. And back to John Giegengack's point, yes, your iPhone, and particularly the latest one, the 17, it is a production studio in your hand. So I think we may see more mobile creators and high quality at that. This is a time where we get to think about what we've heard. And I will ask you in just a second for your voice in all of this. And I think we've had quite a good discussion. And I want you to thank Team Paid Hybrid, Rebecca Avery and John Giegengack. And of course, Team Free, Jonathan Shrank and John Stevens. And now it is time for you to vote. Yes, speaking of participation media. Please stamp your feet and clap and say yay for is the winner of this debate Team Free? Or is the winner of this debate Team Paid Hybrid? I want to thank you, the audience, because you have been very dutiful here. I saw maybe one person go out, and I think it was to get coffee, so it actually grew. So for those of us who are in the metrics business, we grew our audience, and maybe it's because some are coming into the next session. We do have to clear this room in a minute. There's another session, I believe, in here. Is that correct? Yes? Say yay, somebody? Anyway, the answer is yes. So I have taken into account, because I've been scoring, and I did hear your weigh in, and with that, the winner is Team Free. Team Free is the winner, and not by that much, but yes, Jonathan Shrank and John Stevens did win. Rebecca Avery and John Giegengack, I did an excellent job as well, but I do give the nod to Team Free. I do want to say something. What we have witnessed is just an incredible display by great talents in this space, people who are producing and distributing and analyzing, and you're getting this, not necessarily for free, but you were...
Hybrid.
Maybe it's hybrid. It's a little bit of hybrid here if you just walked in off the street. But there's some great data here, and this is my tip to remember that this is being recorded. So please, please look for this when it goes up on the Streaming Media YouTube channel, YouTube again. And for those who weren't here, point them to this, because this is really great stuff here, and it's my privilege to work with these people and, of course, all the Streaming Media team, and with you. Thank you for being here. Again, The debate was, is the future of streaming paid versus, paid hybrid versus free? We've determined today that at least the winner today is free, but the points that were made, and particularly on our prep call, Rebecca, particularly on spinning up channels that were paid, which I thought was really phenomenal. Now I'm giving you some notes.
Thank you so much. In fact, that's amazing that we have the opportunity to really go and listen
I have the
to this
voice
in
of
future.
God telling me to wrap it. So one last thing. Give it up again for John Stevens from V10 Entertainment.
Thank you.
Jonathan Shrank from TheSoul Publishing. Rebecca Avery from Integration Therapy. John Giegengack from Hub Entertainment Research. I'm Chris Pfaff from Chris Pfaff Tech Media LLC. Thank you, everybody. Nadine.
Thank you. We have a 15-minute break now, and after that, my panel comes up, or my debate. We have a debate on lean back or lean forward. We have Laura Martin, who is the analyst excellence at Needham and Company. We have John Barbato, who is a co-CEO at Best Channels Ever. We have Scott Davis, the CTO at Global Logic, and we have Colin Petrie-Norris, who founded Zumo and is now working on a company called Fairground. So it should be a really lively debate. Our debate will be a slightly different format, and we have audience interaction that will be included, so bring your questions. Thank you very much.